Hey, what's going on, Change Church? I'm Al DiSalvatore, and we have Kirby, who leads our kids ministry, leads my kids, Keenan Clayton, and I know that you do such a great job because my kids love you, and I'm grateful for all the time you put into it. And I'm grateful for our pastors, Elijah and Ashley, for even allowing us to have the space to talk about this. And we're going to be talking about racism when it comes to kids. How do you talk to your kids about this? And how do you approach this conversation with young ones, teenagers? And so we're just going to get right into it.
I think it's going to be great. It's going to be super great because we're both educators and we're able to kind of help you parents at home or anyone who has children that are around that are going to have that conversation. Because as parents know, we don't always get to have that initial conversation, or we don't always get to hear the heart behind it. Like, I know my son is really comfortable with his aunt where they may have conversations. So if you're around kids and you need to have that conversation, hopefully this helps you kind of break down that barrier and not be so tense when you have the conversation.
And sometimes these conversations are awkward. Like, I'm even sitting here thinking, like, I want to say the right thing and ask the good questions and everything. And sometimes there's that fear to back away from having conversations because it's awkward. But I feel like when we feel that awkwardness, we should just face it and embrace it and see what God can do with it. So, this conversation, I hope it's good. I hope it helps brings us closer together, brings more understanding. And I'm just going to embrace my awkwardness. So please bear with me because I know Kirby's going to make everything look great because she just has that way. But we're just going to get right into it and just embrace that awkwardness because I feel like, a lot of parents, a lot of people don't have conversations with their kids because it's awkward and it's difficult and like, where do you begin? So I'm just going to ask you like point blank, how do you talk to your kids about racism?
I have Aiden, who's probably watching. He'll be 8 by the time this airs. So, hey, Aiden.
Happy birthday, Aiden.
Honestly, if I can really be honest, the bulk of my emotion with everything that is happening is I have to eventually have this tough conversation of Aiden being a Black man in America. And that to me is probably the most hardest thing to wrap around my head, because in my head, people aren't going to look at him and say, oh, wow, he's, fun, smart, and athletic. The first thing they're going to see is, oh, wow, he's a Black man walking up to me. And to kind of wrap my head around, like, I'm mama bear, so it's like wrapping my head around someone looking at him different just because of that and not knowing the person behind it. It's really tough, like trying to navigate it, honestly. He's in this great world right now where, his closest friend is white and his closest friend's sister is like his little sister, and
Cool.
We're like all hanging out together. And I have friends that are white and of other nationalities, and so he's in this world where eventually I have to be the one to kind of pop the bubble for him, to kind of make it be realistic. And so I'm so thankful that I don't have to have this conversation with him alone. He has so many male figures in his life that can attest to the conversation important, because I am going to be like a ball of tears when I have the conversation. I saw a post that showed a little boy holding a sign that said, when do I go from being cute to scary? And it's like, at what point does Aiden become the Black male that people are scared of or tense around? So honestly, with everything that's happening, that has been what I've been trying to process. I know that I have to have a conversation with him, but how to have it, I'm wrapping my head around, honestly, because when police pull you over, like, I have to teach him, hey, do this and make sure you keep your hands on the steering wheel and make sure you're asking permission before you move. Don't make any sudden movements. When they ask you a question, make sure you only answer that question. And So it's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's crazy that you even bring that up about teaching your son how to pull over or how to act when he gets pulled over from a cop, because um, that's something like my dad never taught me. I was only taught like pull over and just know where your registration is. That's all you got to know. And I was on staff at the church with a friend of mine, and he was having a kid, and he was telling me about like just what's going to be like bringing up his kid, and he's like, as a black man, I have to teach my child what to do when they get pulled over. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like, that's not even a thought for me.
Right.
That never even crossed my mind, and it's something that's already on your
Yeah.
mind.
And I've been thinking about that, and even the small things that happen with it, and like when he gets angry about something, it's like, no, you can't be that angry, you can't show that big emotion, because if I don't train it now, when he gets older, that can go left really quickly. So it's teaching him the small things. It's me putting in my mind of what kind of man am I raising, which
Yeah.
I feel all parents kind of have
Yeah.
that, thought process. What kind of adult do I want to raise,
Yeah.
and how do I mold it now?
Yeah.
Not just letting him be angry and letting it be okay, but understanding, as a man, period, you can't show your emotion like that. You need to learn how to control your anger.
Yeah.
And as a black man, you definitely need to learn how to control your anger, because that could be the last time, I see you. So it's like really trying to just mold and have small conversations now.
Yeah.
That way, when the time does come for us to have the big conversation, that it's not so foreign.
Yeah, no, I like to having the small conversations now, and kind of building that relational equity with like your child. Like, don't let the first real conversation you have with your kid be about something serious. Like, already just build in with those little conversations here and there. And it's interesting to me hear you say that you don't want Aiden to fall into certain stereotypes, especially like with his anger and all those kind of things. Because I'm Italian, like I'm a son of an Italian immigrant. My dad came over when he was a young guy, and so for me, being Italian, like we're okay with, like we're not angry, we're just passionate.
Right.
But for Aiden, he doesn't have that leeway. Can you talk about maybe breaking down the stereotypes that sometimes Aiden may face, and some of the stereotypes that you face as a mom?
He's gonna face being the angry black guy, like how you said, like your family is known for being loud and
Oh, we are very
boisterful,
loud.
and that's what you're known for. But when him and his friends are loud, it's a fight, or it's frowned upon, or they're too loud, and so therefore that's not okay. Um, we're really trying to instill in him now to be a leader and not a follower. Like, that's something really big. Of course, everybody wants their child to be a leader, but I feel like for a young black male, you can't be a follower. You have to know the difference between right and wrong. You can't be okay with what your friends are doing. You need to speak up when they're not doing what they're supposed to. And that's whether your friends are white or black or whatever. Like, that conversation, needs to happen. And he's going to be looked at. I mean, honestly, just the stereotype of him being athletic, like, oh, you have to play basketball or you have to play football, and that's it.
Yeah,
Aiden is a math whiz. Like, he loves math.
that's awesome.
And
Because I hate
so
math.
you're a teacher, you can't say that.
I'm sorry. We can cut that. We can cut that out.
But he loves math. And so to know that people are going to look at him and automatically associate him with the basketball or associate him with the football. Aiden loves baseball.
Yeah.
That's not a really big, like, culture thing for us to play baseball. Like,
Yeah.
that's not, he loves it. That's like his heart and his passion. So he's going to have the stereotype of he's only supposed to be athletic, and
Yeah.
that's it. Or he's dumb, or he's a thug, or, he's dangerous, or, he starts giving his opinion and, he thinks he's better than everyone. And then now someone is trying to tear him down because let me remind you that you're not better than me because of how they were raised. So it really comes back to the conversations that you have with your kid. You have to be open to your kids being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like you have to be vulnerable with them and allow them to express themselves to where they're openly processing it and you're not telling them what to say. It's okay for them to feel certain things because in their mind they're different. They're experiencing things different. You may think you know what's going on, but you have no idea what's happening in like their tiny minds. So having that vulnerability between the two of you is going to open up the conversation for what's to come.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because, for me, I think that's part of like the white privilege is I don't think about those things with Keen. I think people try to say like, what's white privilege, and I think sometimes, for the white perspective, it's white privilege isn't a thing because like white people have struggles too. It's like, well, I've struggled. Like white privilege isn't a real thing. Like white privilege is a real thing because the fact that I don't have to worry about if my son gets pulled over, the fact that I don't have to worry about the stigmas or the stereotypes that my son will have on what sports he plays, but those are things that you think about. To me, that's the tension, and I feel like talking about this can help define some of those things that I feel like are hard to articulate.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying and what we've experienced, you can see the differences there, and it breaks my heart that is a thing. And I think having these conversations, we can help, maybe bridge those gaps. You said before about being an educator, and what grade do you teach?
I teach kindergarten and first grade, and I love it.
Awesome.
I absolutely love it.
Very cool.
I love the difference in my groups. I have a very mixed class, which is a lot of fun, and we're able to have those experiences of different cultures.
Yeah.
And that I've been blessed to have a very good multicultural class every time I've taught every
awesome.
year. So that's been very fun.
That's awesome. Teaching K and one,
K and one.
pulling double duty. Oh my
at
goodness.
the same time.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to be teaching 5th and 6th grade, so like that's.
I'll help you out.
Oh yeah. I'll definitely be calling for some advice. When it comes to education and racism and some of the challenges and some of the things that can come into the education system where students aren't just dealing with whether or not they're going to get an A or B on the test and that being their only challenge. There could be other challenges too. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of your own experiences with racism, growing up as a student, and maybe some of the things you experienced as a teacher?
Whew. Yeah. I'll say like my first time experiencing it, I was 8, 3rd grade, switch classes, switch schools, and I had a white student walk up and he was just like, "You're ugly." And I was just like, "Okay." All right. And you're dumb. And to me, I was just like, he never came out and said, "You're ugly because you're black." But I paid attention and noticed that he was saying it to every black girl that was in the classroom.
Wow, you're 8 years old when you picked
And
up
I'm
on that?
8.
Wow.
And so, that happened, and even experiencing it in the neighborhood because I came from Houston, Texas. And so therefore being down south is like Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
So, cops are riding past and I'm saying hi to them. And the kids that live on the street are like, "You're stupid. Like, they don't care about you." And I'm like, "Oh, they do care about me, whatever." As a child, that's what I know and believe. But I can say my first big experience of racism that was blatant to me, I was in high school. I was on the volleyball team, and I had some friends from a neighborhood that I was always hanging around, and they came to watch me play. It was like 4 guys. And so they had their pants sagging and the hats and the coolest guys ever. Like, they were so supportive. I mean, they came to watch me play volleyball. Like, you know.
That's pretty cool. They probably had nicknames, right?
Right, exactly. Like, we had Twizzy and Scooter, and, you know, all these different names. And so.
You know you're cool when you got a nickname.
Right. And so they come to my game, and as we're leaving, the entire football team is walking behind us. And I'm looking like, okay, what's going on? And they're like, they stole our stuff.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here like, they were watching me play the entire time. How did they steal your stuff? And it just went back and forth. And so finally we left. No fighting or anything. It was just like, all right, guys, like, let's just go ahead and go.
Wow.
Well, I get to school the next day, and I get called to the dean's office. And he's like, you know, I heard things were stolen out of the locker room, and I heard that you had friends that were not from here, and I need their names. And so I'm sitting here, the principal, and I'm sitting here like,
I need to get names.
and I'm just like,
Didn't even ask for your perspective.
no perspective, no proof. It's just you're going off of what some kids say. And so in my head, I'm like, I know they were sitting there the whole time that I was playing. And so I said, well, I don't know their names. Like, Twizzy, Scooter, no, you're going to give me their names because this is what we were told, and we need to know what school they go to.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting here defensive because I know my friends. And so I'm like, there were other people that were there. Why didn't you ask them? No, we're asking you. And if you don't tell us, you're going to get suspended.
Wow.
And I'm calling your mother. So he calls my mom.
Not even trying to get both sides to the story.
No. And I'm just sitting here like, what the heck, Kirby? You're about to get suspended over something
that you didn't even do.
I didn't even know what was going on.
You're just playing volleyball. Did you guys win?
Probably not. I had a good game, but team-wise, probably not. And so it came down, and I'm talking to my mom, and my mom is an educator, and she's like, when they ask you a question, you answer. And I'm like, but they didn't do it. I know they didn't.
Wow.
And so 2 days later, I didn't get suspended. Thank God. I did a lot in the school, so that probably helped. But 2 days later, one of my friends that was on the team came, and he said, yeah, we found our stuff. And I'm like, okay, where'd you find it? One of the teammates' little brothers took their stuff.
So where's his little brother?
I don't have a little brother, but thank God.
But they didn't even take that into consideration.
They didn't take it into consideration. And that was the first time that I had to stand up for something that wasn't right, because in my mind, you're only going after them because, one, you don't know them,
right?
And two, because they're Black at a volleyball game. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I'm pretty sure in his mind what thugs are going to go to watch a volleyball game, not even paying attention to the fact of, you know, these were actual friends that just wanted to support me.
Right. And even using that word, like, isn't there another word that you could say to describe your friends?
You would think, but I feel like we've spoken about this, the things that you watch and that you feed yourself, kind of, you have no filter, and that's what you're feeding yourself, so that's what it is. And when you watch a lot of movies where the Black guy is, you know, the thug in the movie, then that's just what they all are. And all Black people are now the same.
Right.
Which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, you know, you saying that the principal didn't even, you know, try to get both sides, was calling your friends certain names like thug and things like that without even just asking them what their names really are and all those kind of things. You know, now that you are an educator, can you speak a little bit about like what you see as an educator when it comes to racism? And, you know, one of the big words right now in education is equity. You know, when you want students to have equity, equal chance, equal opportunity to learn. Can you speak about
It sounds great, and that's what you hope for, and as a teacher, that's what you strive for in your classroom. But I have seen teachers just disengage from their class before they even get them. Like when you have a multicultural class, it's like, oh, I get to do this and I can do that and I can do this. But then when you know that you're getting an all African American class, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with this parent, or I'm going to have to deal with this, or, you know, I'm going to have to work harder to get them on the right reading level and things like that. And it's so frustrating because it's something that they can't change. Like, yes, you have to do your job. Like, it's, you know, you have to work a little bit harder in certain stances, but not all children are the same.
Right.
And so it just gets frustrating. Or
When you see a teacher not even get to know their students, but already stereotype them or just
yeah,
kind
that
of,
they're dumb, or, you know, a clown, the class clown. Now I have a class full of class clowns, and not understanding the culture. And like I can say, when I taught an Asian child, and when I would talk to him, he would never look at me. And as I spoke to his parents about it, I said, you know, when I correct him, he doesn't look at me. And for us, you're supposed to look at the adult. Well, in their culture, that's a sign of disrespect. You don't do that. And so when you don't take the chance to learn the culture that you're teaching,
wow.
it changes things.
It's amazing too how even something like that would be so easy to overlook, a student not looking at you. But when you take the time to understand that student's culture, that them not looking at the teacher is not a sign of disrespect, but it's actually a sign of respect.
Right.
Having that understanding can help you reach and teach that
So much
student so
further.
much more. Because for me, when I was looking into the teacher, it was because I was being disrespectful. It wasn't because I was being respectful.
Because you don't care.
Because I don't care. I was mad at the teachers. I was going to show it, but just take that extra step to learn about that student, learn about that student's culture, can help you connect and teach and reach so much more. It's amazing. Like, what a great picture that you
Yeah.
painted.
You can look at it on the teacher perspective, and then because we're both parents, we can break that down to being parents, where if we're out, I have to make sure what's being said, the jokes that are around Aiden are filtered. If nobody, listen, parents, if no one is going to stick up for your child and filter what your child watches and hears, it has to be you. It has to be you.
That's good.
Because I don't allow that space around him, because you can't speak that into him. You can't speak that over him. You can't speak that around him. If a joke is made, I don't find it funny. So now I don't have to teach Aiden that it's wrong. He's picking up on my cues. He's picking up on, hey, that joke made about this person is not funny. My mom didn't laugh, so now, like, I'm not going to laugh at that. And I feel like it's funny because like we have our own stereotypes that we put white people in, and, you know, things that are funny and not funny.
Like what? I'm just curious.
Okay, all right, okay,
I'm gonna get real here.
whatever. I grew up thinking that white people didn't get cold. My mom didn't have to teach that to me. I probably was driving around and saw a white person eating ice cream with shorts on in the wintertime. And in my head, hey, you don't get cold. But taking that joke, that one-time thing that I see, if I joke about it in front of Aiden and I laugh about it, I don't have to teach him that. He's hearing it and he's picking up on it. So now when he gets older, in his mind, white people don't get cold. Then he sees someone in shorts. He's cold, but they're not cold, but it's going to trigger it. And I feel like when you have those stereotypes, like, parents, we are not immune once you become a parent to what we grew up with.
Yeah.
The stereotypes that we heard, the things that we've watched, the jokes that we've heard or made, we're not immune to that. And so when you don't acknowledge that, hey, this joke is not funny or this is actually wrong, your child is picking up on that. The
Oh.
way you don't have to teach them things, that's what they pick up on.
It's so true that you say that about parents taking a proactive role. Because I remember when I was younger, back in the day when like Randall Cunningham was the quarterback for the Eagles, loved Randall, ultimate weapon.
Oh, you're a true Blue fan.
I bleed eagle green when we lose and when we win and everything between. I remember when I was younger and had a bunch of people over the house and we were watching the Eagles play Randall Cunningham, and I heard one of the people that we were with say, "Oh, Randall Cunningham, he's just a monkey with a coconut," you know, and like I didn't pick up on like the weight of that, you know, and I remember getting ready to go to school the next day, and I was like, "Man, that Randall Cunningham, he's such a monkey with a coconut," and my mom was like, "You can't say that." She's like, "Do not say that. Like, that is not appropriate." And I was like, wow. And it like struck me because like I'm just thinking like, cartoons, like no big deal, but like the racial implications of that statement, for my mom to correct me. Like I don't remember a lot from sixth grade, you know what I'm saying? But I remember that.
I do remember that.
Yeah, but I remember that, and that like made an impression upon me. So the fact that as a parent, it's important that when you see things to speak to things.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to speak up, and you have to be aware that your children are oblivious to what's around them. They pick up your behavior and they can sense when you're angry and when you're upset, and you don't have to teach them things.
There's actually a term. We're going to give you a little insight to like the educator side of things.
Teacher
So we're going to
moment.
get some teacher jargon. There's a term that is called silent curriculum, where you're teaching things in the class, how you behave, how you teach, what you correct in students, what you don't correct in students. That's called silent curriculum, where your students are picking up things, not for what you're teaching, but how you're behaving. So I think as a parent, there's silent curriculum that goes on where the things that we address, the things that we don't address, kids are sponges and they pick up on that big time.
Pick up on everything. They pick up on everything. And it's not so much as, hey, let's have this black and white conversation, or, let's have this this Mexican conversation. Like it's not so much as that, but it's understanding you are raising human beings. So the human beings that you see on posts and Facebook and Instagram, and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't your parents correct you when you were younger? You're the parents. Like you're the ones who are now having to mold our future. And it sounds so cliche. It really does, but it's so true that you can overlook it. You can overlook that responsibility that you have of raising your child correctly, whether it be a female or a male. Like you're the one who is helping them mold their thoughts and how to express themselves and how to speak and how to treat others by how you're treating them and how you're treating others around them.
It's true, like there's so many outside forces that mold us and influence us, especially the church. Church has a way of molding us, influencing us. I mean, for me growing up, I was in church on Sunday morning. I was at church on Sunday night. I was at church on Wednesdays. It was like the majority of my week, was like school, and then the next thing was church. Okay. Can you speak a little bit to some of your experiences with racism in the church? Because sometimes, Sunday can, Martin Luther King said that Sunday was the most segregated hour of the week, was that hour on Sunday. Can you speak to some of your experience in the church?
I went to a Catholic school, even though I was not Catholic. all through elementary, middle school, and high school. And I guess you can say a lot of things for me were sugar coated because in my mind, it's because I'm not Catholic that these things are said or these things are done. And I get this response from this person. But I can say, I've, as an adult, I feel the segregation in the church because you have, oh, I'm going to go to this Baptist church and it's going to be like this, or I'm going to go here and it's going to feel like this, or I'm going to go to the white church because it feels like this. But it's like in reality, that's not how it should be. That's not how we're called to be. That's not what heaven looks like. And if we're supposed to bring, heaven on earth, how can I be open to my brothers and sisters if I'm stuck in this box?
Right. And do you see that happen even like in kids ministry in church?
It's funny. Change Kids, if you guys are watching, whoop, whoop, I love you guys. It's funny because when we first started the church, we've been here since our soft launch before we,
You were the OG change people.
I am.
OG
Oh my,
change. Here we go.
honestly, I might be the only one left. Like, I think it might be me and Doc, shout out. But when we first started, we were it was me and Aiden, like Aiden was the only Black kid at Change Kids. And we had other kids that were there, and I came on the team being the Change Kids leader. Like, that's how I joined, and I helped launch it, and it was great. And then watching kids interact, either they've never been around Black kids this often before, and they're learning Aiden, and Aiden's not really being around white kids this much before, so he's learning that. And so being the leader of it, molding it, not making it so much as this is a Black-white thing, but hey, as a person, how would you feel if this other person did that, and making it more consciously aware of, oh, well, I don't want to feel that way, so I'm not going to do that to other people. Or, the only white kid that wanted to befriend Aiden, hey, why don't you guys, hey, we're going to play a game. How about you three play this? It's like molding and making, not forcing, but because the kid has so much fun, they're going to want to play with other kids. And then you challenge them like, oh, well, let's see if you can do this, or, oh, hey, why don't you come over here and do that? And then even with the parents, because as an educator, you're not just teaching kids, you're teaching parents. Even when you say that, it's training a parent who has never been corrected before to see hey, when you make this statement, this is how a child feels.
Yeah.
When you say something like this, or when you when you point out these similarities with someone, this is how the other children feel that are not like that. And that helps you open your mind to saying, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And so that starts to change, because now it's not, oh, well, you two have this. It's, oh my gosh, you're all girls and you have a dress on. Like, oh, that's so cool. And it's like, oh, you have pants. That's so cool. I have pants too. Like, it sounds stupid and it sounds very kiddish, but in their world, that means a lot, that you can point out things that all of them have.
Make those connections where they have those things in common and really build upon that.
But not just off of, hey, you two have the same color skin, you guys go over here, and be okay with just them playing by themselves. For me, I guess you can say I push the envelope. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with you thinking that you're the only two in your own little world that have this in common. Hey, did you know while you're playing basketball, hey, did you know that this kid likes to play basketball too? You guys should have a game together, and I'm going to play, and none of you can beat me. Yes, I talk to your kids like that. None of your kids can beat me. And that it takes me stepping out of my comfort zone and understanding the bigger picture that, and which is really why I like teaching, because they're not kids that I can just tell to sit over here and that be it. These are minds that are little human beings that are going to grow up. And how do I want them to behave? I don't want them to think, oh, well, when I was at church, we were over here and the black kids were over here. No, we all played together. So I don't know your experience. I can't relate because when I went to church, we were all together.
Kirby, so we've been talking about not having just one conversation, but having like a lifestyle of conversation
Right.
about how to talk about difficult things with your kids, how to approach racism with your kids. And I love this verse from Deuteronomy 6:4, where it ties those things together. It says this: "Hear, our Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts." And I love this next part. "Impress them upon your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates." I love that verse because it speaks exactly to what you're talking about. Tie them on the door frames, write them on your wrists. The way we can do that today is, when you're in the car with your kids, have a conversation. When you're in the line at the grocery store, when we get back to, things going green,
6 feet away.
6 feet away. We don't have to be 6 feet away anymore. When you're in the grocery line, when you're at a baseball game or a volleyball game, shout out, find those little ways, those little conversations, because I think those little things become big things to our students, to our kids, when we make it not just a conversation, but we make it a lifestyle, make it a
Right.
lifestyle conversation. So I want to encourage you, for those watching at home, what are your door frames? What are the ways that you can
Right.
impress these things upon your kids? And be you. Use your unique things. Hey, if it's Fortnite, use Fortnite as a way to talk about your kids. Each kid is unique, and you know what will connect with them. So find your door frame for
Right.
how you can impress these things upon your kids. So then it won't be just a
Right.
one thing, but it'll be an everyday thing.
Yeah, because it breaks that part. Like you hear the verse and then in the beginning it's talking about you
Yeah.
and what you're experiencing. And then it says, take that and this is what you need to do to your children. It's not just take it, learn for yourself, but no, don't talk to the kids about it because they're not old enough yet or they're, don't have a conversation with them yet. It's no, take this and impress it on your children.
Yeah.
It needs to be on their forehead. When people walk around and they see your child, they should know, hey, this person doesn't stand for this or this kid. Wow. A kid can change the world. Honestly, if you really think about it, it can change. And so when you impress it and you teach them and you have those conversations, not saying that every conversation that you have needs to be this deep, heartfelt and strong conversation, make it lighthearted. Make it to where they're understanding what you're talking about.
And even that word like impress, like impression, like
Right.
we are making an impression upon our students and our children. So it's not even the conversations that we're having and the things that we're talking about. It's what jokes are we laughing at? What are they picking up on that we're doing? What are we impressing upon them? Where we can educate our
Right.
children and our students by what we laugh at, what we don't laugh at, what we watch, what we don't watch, what we allow them to watch with us,
Right.
and how we can make those ways and make that impression.
I mean, you're right. You have to find something that interests your child and pull it out and have those conversations with them.
It's so important because I feel like, when we make those connections with our kids on things that they like, that gives us the ability to speak into their life so that we can share with them. Because if the only time we're talking to our kids is when we're talking at them and we're not talking with them, I think we lose opportunities. So,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
hope that encourages you and blesses you. Deuteronomy 6:4, may we impress upon our children these things, not just one time, but throughout our day and through little ways that can maybe turn into a big difference. God, we thank you so much for Kirby. We thank you so much for our kids volunteers, for educators, and for parents, Lord, trying to navigate these conversations. Lord, may we just embrace the tension and the awkwardness and be
God.
present, God, even if we're not perfect, and see what you can do. And we just pray for our country. We pray for our children. And we look for your Holy Spirit to bring each other together and be that bridge. May we be that bridge and see what you can do when we come together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.